Martin, thanks so much for joining us on this Zoom call this morning. Could you just tell me, Martin, a little bit about how you came to faith in Jesus Christ yourself, first of all?
Yeah, sure. I grew up going to a church in Manchester. It's where I was born and raised, and it was a major part of my life with my family growing up. And so I went to Sunday school, and I knew all the stories that I'd been taught about the Bible and about Jesus. When I was about 15, I was in a meeting where somebody was sharing, and I realized that I probably didn't know Jesus personally in my heart. And so I prayed a prayer then to know that better. And I think there wasn't really a conscious change in my life from being brought up in a Christian home. But I realized that some of my priorities changed as I was going through the end of secondary school. So friends of mine were going to university and other places to try and earn lots of money, or having a great career. And I thought, well, actually, why don't I take my faith a bit more seriously and myself, and decide what does God want me to do when I grow up. And so I got involved with a group called Operation Mobilization at that point, who do mission and other activities worldwide. Started in East Birmingham by going for a 1-week mission outreach when I was 17. And so then I did go to university, but studied mechanical engineering, thinking I could use it potentially as a career. But I was prepared to consider other options because of how my faith was affecting my life. And so it wasn't necessarily a sudden change, but certainly an awareness of knowing that God was real in my life, and I was following the ways of Jesus as explained in Scripture, and then trying to make that my lifestyle with the various choices that I was making.
Thank you. So that foundational kind of church base and a loving home helped you enormously, and then being able to take hold of that faith a little bit for yourself in your teenage years gave you that direction. And was sport always a big deal for you all your life?
Well, yeah, for better or worse, talking to a group that is based near Battersea Park. I'm a Mancunian, so unlike a lot of people's perception, there are a few Manchester United supporters, but Manchester United was a major part of my life growing up. And just in case you're worried about just me following success, I grew up in the 70s and 80s when Manchester United were not winning a lot of things. Liverpool won everything, Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest. It's like all of these people. So I learned some good values of long suffering and patience and perseverance as a United fan. But yeah, I played football all my life, just on the street till it went dark, and then came in again, would try any sport. And I never really excelled in any sport, but I was willing to try them. And at university, actually, when I was there, I joined the Christians in Sport group because our hall of residence had a football team. And it turned out that 5 members of that team were Christians, unusually. So we played in the intramural league, so it wasn't really high quality necessarily, but we really enjoyed our football. And we used to actually meet together to pray for 30 minutes before the match on a Wednesday afternoon, just because there were 5 of us that were believers out of the 12 on the team. And so I realized then as well that in the world of sport, if you're a witness, you can be for Jesus, and also just the way that sport was able to break down barriers between people as well. So that was first at university, and then it developed more as I went on into my later career.
So the marriage of your faith and your passion for sport have seen a kind of your profession has followed that, in that you now work for ambassadors. So tell us a little bit about ambassadors. What do you do? What's the vision? What's the work?
Sure, yeah. So I graduated and joined this group OM, and then left sport behind because you didn't do that when you were in a Christian organization in those days, in the early 90s. But then we were in North Africa, and played football against people on the beach as just young men trying to make friends and share our faith and distribute literature in North Africa in those days. And we saw that football, when you played football, you just made friends immediately, and you had a chance to be able to share your faith. And then in 1996, I was asked if I would become a director for the sports ministry within OM. And that was very new, totally new. Nobody had done that before. And so we began that, and that grew inside this bigger organization of 5,000 people. We had a smaller group of different countries where they were using and working through cricket, rugby, football, all sorts of sports. And so ambassadors I knew about already because my best mate joined ambassadors when I joined OM. And ambassadors focus on football, which can be limiting, but actually really gives a good focus on the most popular sport in the world. Whether you like it or not, it is, and lots of people love it. And so the aim of ambassadors, when I joined in 2010, I was involved internationally, but now I'm the national director for Britain. And our aim is to just help churches realize that there's a platform and a tool that you can use through football to fulfill your mission, whatever that is. It could be that you really, really want to reach out to old folk in your community. And so we have we help a church to set up walking football, for example. They do that in St Andrews Leyland, just down the road from me. About 16 blokes come on a Thursday in the morning, aged between 55 and 91, and they play football together, but in the church hall, and then they get a chance to share. It feeds into other ministries. Then you've got children's football. Here in Lancaster, we have a Saturday morning football club for about 40 kids, mainly in the area of town where we are is where there's a lot of ethnic diversity, which is unusual for rural Lancashire. But we get out of the 40 kids, probably 30 don't go to church, and 20 are from Muslim families, probably. And we coach them all under the age of 11. So we've got some dads and some others from ambassadors. We work together, we coach the kids, and then we pray. We have services around Easter and Christmas. And so the various activities feed into whatever a church's outreach opportunities are. So around London, we have various outreaches on estates in places like Vauxhall or Victoria Park, in Hackney, and we're working with homeless men in Whitechapel, but complementing a church's ministry through football. We have 30 years of doing this within ambassadors now. It began in 1990, and so we've got guys with quite a lot of experience, a small staff, but we've got a lot of years under our belt in football ministry. So we've tried to develop training that can help a church and individuals realize that football's a way to reach out.
So tell me just a little bit more about the football for the homeless that happens in Whitechapel. Can you just give us a bit of a picture of that?
Yeah, sure. It began about 10 years ago, where there was a church that was near, there are a few Salvation Army hostels there, and you guys are the Londoners, you know the situation better than I do, where there's not necessarily always a number of people necessarily homeless on the streets, but sofa surfers and people who are very transient in their lifestyle and with their accommodation, etc. And so Good Shepherd Mission is the church that specifically has a focus in that area around Whitechapel, and they linked up with some of the hostels to go to them and say, look, we can play football for an hour and a half in the local park, and then we can go and have a meal, and then we'll have a short Bible study, time of fellowship for anybody that wants to turn up. And so it began with a few different groups in partnership, but we were the main leaders for the football part. And then about 800 men probably over the years have come through the program, and some of them turn up with different issues. Either they've come out of prison and they haven't got anywhere to stay, or they've come from another city and they're looking for work in London. Others are long-term unemployed or homeless. And the thing about the football for the homeless in particular is that it gives you kind of something to hang your hat on once a week. You know that at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday, you're going to go down to the park and you're going to be playing, and then you've got the food, and then you've got a little time of fellowship together. And so some people, it's given opportunities to invest in people's lives. So the football gives an environment where it keeps some of the guys fit when they wouldn't be fit. And we started walking football as well, having had football, originally, because of the fitness levels of some of these, even young men who have not got a very healthy lifestyle. But he gives a chance to invest in them and say, look, there's possibilities for your future that you might not have considered. Why not get involved more with this aspect, or do this training? And obviously investing in their lives from a faith perspective can really make a difference.
That's massive. 800 men over the years. I think that's incredible.
Mm.
Now I've benefited from the Ambassadors Ministry, as have some of the people watching this, because we've taken part in the annual tournament that you run.
Absolutely, yes.
Over in East Ham. I think we've done 4. I'm not quite sure. Maybe even more.
Marigolds.
The marigold? No, the what are we called? I always you say the marigolds. It's the magnolias. I had
Magnolias.
the magnolias. No, everyone calls us the marigolds like we've got rubber gloves on, but actually probably at this time we should. No, we're the magnolias, because
of
got
course,
the amazing magnolia tree in her garden. So
we love the stars, though, really, because what's great about it is that I've come down from the wilds of the north to come to this London Churches football tournament over the years, and you are instantly recognizable, partly because of the bright kit, but you bring not just the players, but you bring like half of your community with you, with the families, with the picnic, with everything else. And that is what I think football ministry is all about. It's getting people onto a field who might not normally be on a field as well, saying, oh, I think I can do this. Oh, and actually, my kids can come along.
We're very good at cake and Prosecco as well. You should know that, Martin.
Well, that's why I gravitate towards you, on possibly. I'm not going to say, but you don't get that offer sometimes with your average bloke's football team. But yes.
Well, we love it, and it's a great focus for us in the year. So but not everybody else will know that we have a local women's football team here that has come out of, or is part of, I should say, St Mark's, Battersea Rise, so our next door parish, but welcomes everybody. And in normal times we train on a Thursday night, and we're part of a local fitness group called Open Air Fit, and we train with them as well on a Friday morning. And we just find it's a great way to build friendships, to have a laugh, to stay fit, but also the opportunities to pray for people, to share faith. They're just so natural. For some reason, around a football pitch, they just feel so natural. So that's been our experience, and thank you for helping us kind of live that out.
Yeah. This weekend would have been the church's football tournament, actually. So we've postponed it, and we're hoping when this is all done that there'll be a chance to gather together again. But we're limited by the social distancing restrictions. But we do feel that football and sport generally will be a way to help recovery in lots of ways as society gets back on track.
I'm sure, and I also want to mention at this point that with Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, football can be, and it hasn't always been, and we need to own that, but it can be a place of real racial justice and reconciliation. And I think when I think of that field in East Ham, we do see everybody there and involved. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And I mean, that's what it's expanded over the years, really. So you get a certain group of churches that were interested, and then we spread the word. And I think that's why it's so effective and people appreciate it, is that you've got all walks of life, and different economic backgrounds, different demographics, and you can come together, and literally it's a level playing field. And we really believe that football just provides an environment where the church can be church. So it's up to the church then to decide, are you going to offer just to pray for the person who's just shared that they're struggling a little bit, or are you going to be able to make an appointment to see somebody and have a coffee with them later, or invite them to an alpha course? It's like the opportunities are there through football, and that's what the tournament really offers, that opportunity as well, because we always have a keynote speaker at lunchtime. And last year it was 61 teams from about 50 churches, and all a variety of churchmanship, but you could see that you had a chance to be able to share something of value with all those guys. It's really a fantastic event, and you've partnered it with things like
turning weapons into farm tools with Stephen Timms, where there was an amnesty on knives. You had Shane Claiborne, who's one of my kind of real heroes in the faith, speaking. I couldn't quite believe that he was there on a football field in East Ham. There was also there's been mention of kind of reclaiming lost and damaged environment, and we heard talk about that. So somehow you've been able to align football with all kinds of important theological issues, and I really admire the way that you've done that. I just wondered if, as we draw to a close, could you give us what would be your prayer or your sense maybe of what you feel God might be saying or doing as you, from your ministry, look out into kind of the country. I'm not asking you to be a prophet for the whole nation, but just what's on your heart, I guess, at this time.
Well, you just mentioned it just in that last section as well, that I can see there are opportunities that we haven't made the most of yet, where football from a Christian perspective can be a vehicle for change in society. And I was just listening to Commander John Sutherland, who has just written a couple of good books. He's from Holy Trinity, Clapham Common as well, and he was on the radio last week. Crossing the Line was his latest book, and I've talked to him because I think that some of the things he was talking about were important, in the fact that the police, and he was a police commander and then retired, but are often tasked with sorting out society, because you've got to sort out the mess. And he's saying, let's look into the causes of this mess and why society ends up like this with adults, by addressing some of the core needs of gender-based violence or knife crime and other attitudes that are developed from an early age. And I think there's a big opportunity, and I was just contacted by a group called Press Red, started by the people with the Eden Project and the Message Trust in Manchester. I'm talking to them tomorrow about education of children through football about these issues. And we do some of that already in C of E schools in Lancashire by having biblical character values and football coaching sessions, which you might not realise, but they can be quite similar. The values that you have in football can apply in life, and trying to apply those through these sessions at school. But that could apply to knife crime, it could apply to gender-based violence, it could apply to racism, where you can bring an issue in a way that people can listen to it because it's through football. And you could do that with under 10s, you can do it with under 8s, you can do it with the youth, and then get people to make some commitments. Even in Indonesia, one of the places that we've been working most recently with a partner organization, they were getting kids to make a pledge to say that they would not, men and boys would not abuse females in their lives, because so much of abuse and violence is where the victim is female and the perpetrator is male. So you get kids through a football program to make a pledge like that. It might not apply to everybody, but some people might change. And so I really feel that with younger people, we've got a chance to be able to teach more effectively, and with having a focus on that more, might really open up and help change society. It's why not aspire? I'm not saying, it's a silly thing chasing a piece of leather around a football field, but actually you could do so much with the Holy Spirit and, God's power behind us. We can really affect change.
Martin, thank you. I'm going to ask you a final question, which I haven't given you any kind of heads up on, but if you had a favourite Bible verse for your life, what would it be? What would you share with us?
Well, one thing I often have come back to from when I was a youngster, actually, was always Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6, which is very applicable to any stage of life, really. But trust in the Lord with all of your heart, lean not on your own understanding, and in all of your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. And that can apply to sport as well as faith, work, social interaction.
Martin, thank you so much. I'm really grateful that you spent time with us this morning.
Oh, pleasure. Yes, thank you.